So AEW, you came into the company, you'd spent a few years in WWE. Were there anybody that you walked into the door and you're like, man, I'm really excited to work with you? I know Jungle Boy was one of them. You had straight up mentioned that.
Yep.
But was there anybody like that jumped off the page to you and you're like, man, I'm glad I finally get to work with them?
Yeah, so it hasn't happened yet, but CM Punk is my huge one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Because, again, I've made it very clear that for me personally, he was one of the most impactful professional wrestlers as far as inspiration goes. I remember seeing him in Ring of Honor, and again, watching his promos and going, I really, really want to focus on getting good on the microphone because of listening to him talk. And then I thought, okay, he retired, it's never going to happen. Now the fact that it's a possibility, I mean, I can't get it out of my head. I know that someday it has to happen. So, yeah.
Probably going to main event a pay-per-view, do a little something like that.
I hope so. I really, really hope so.
Speaking of pay-per-views, as we film this, Supercard of Honor is this Friday. Tony Khan has bought ROH, a place that you have pretty rich history in. What were your feelings on that? CM Punk got emotional when we asked him about it.
Yeah.
He broke down. He said he was so happy for the footage that made his career to be in such good hands. How did you feel when you first heard about it?
I was elated as well, mainly because, again, Ring of Honor was not only so important and influential to me, but, again, so many of the professional wrestlers that you see today came through Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor was involved in, to a lot of people, exposing them to places like New Japan Pro Wrestling. People who had only watched wrestling in the United States were able to access all this different pro wrestling. Seriously, with the way that ROH went, it kind of changed the modern style of professional wrestling in a lot of ways. But the reason I was so happy, aside from the fact that now I know Ring of Honor is not going away, is Tony Khan loves the history of pro wrestling.
Yes, he does.
And respects the history of pro wrestling. So I know that Ring of Honor in Tony Khan's hands is a good place to be.
And like we had mentioned, like referencing Undisputed Era in AEW, pro wrestling history is AEW history.
Yes.
And that I really like.
Yes.
Because there are infinite stories to tell. Like John Moxley brought up, oh yeah, this one time 14 years ago, I wrestled this person. There was hardly anybody there, but we were there, and that's what matters.
Right.
And that's a story.
Yeah.
And we're good to go there.
Exactly. It doesn't matter what company or where it was or when it was. Again, like you said, AEW will acknowledge that history. And pro wrestling fans are passionate about pro wrestling. I liked that as a fan when you would acknowledge history, and I know our fans do too.